Hey guys, welcome to the third video that I'm doing for the South African String Convention 2020. Again, as always, it's a huge privilege for me to be a part of this, and I want to say thank you to Merigin and a squad of lovely people for inviting me to be a part of it. Today I want to talk about sound, pickups, microphones, amplifiers. That's why I've mic'd up every possible thing I could find. Because sound is always a big issue with anything you play musically, obviously. You inherently want a very good acoustic tone. That's ultimately, it's my lifelong dream to have a really nice sound. And a lot of the time, the sound is related to the bass. It's also related to how you generate the tone. For me, always tone is like 80% is this. And the rest has got to do with the gear a little bit. But I want to take it one step further. The one difference between classical and jazz or most other genres is that although this is an acoustic instrument, you have to play on as a solo instrument, whereas in an orchestra you play in a section. So the bass frequency is covered by 3 or 4 different players, whereas in bands you are the only double bass player, generally speaking. I have played in bands that have 2 double bass players, but we take on very different roles in a band like that. But generally speaking, you need to play in a band in a venue somewhere. So there's so many considerations regarding your sound. Realistically, all one really wants is to have your tone louder. But louder, because it's an acoustic instrument, comes with inherent problems, as in feedback becomes an issue. That sound with the bass just goes, it's massive. You also have to think of the tone of your bass and the size of your bass in a room. So, this is a slightly treated acoustically treated space, so it's not really a factor here. But if you're playing in a big venue or a big hall, like argument's sake, I hate playing in a hall like the Endler or Hugo Lambrecht's hall because it's designed for acoustic instruments. But when I play jazz, it's very rare that I can, because there'll be a drum set playing loudly with me. And, I can't compete with that, generally speaking. So it's the wrong thing in the wrong space, basically. But that cannot deter you from having a good sound. But problematic issues, or the things that are problems, are, all you want is this sound louder. So how exactly do you do it? So you'll see what I've done. I've been recording the whole time using my DPA mic, which is attached to my bass, which is by far the best mic I've ever owned for upright. But it's expensive, and I'm not going to assume that people have money to buy this kind of thing. So, I also have pickups, which are the full circle pickup, which like the height adjuster that I have. The pickup is actually in there. If I tap this, you should hear it. Then the other pickup is the David Gage Realist, which is sitting under the foot of my bridge. And then, I've also then plugged one of them into an amplifier because that also changes the sound. And I've got a normal 57 Airsure 57 microphone, and I'm recording everything always. So at some point in the video, I may switch. So just to give you an example of what everything does, I'm going to play something in a loop, and then I'll switch between the different signals. Hopefully, I get it right after when I edit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sounds. So I'll just play. I don't know. I'll just walk a bass line of blues in F for a couple of hours. Okay, so hopefully I've gone through all of the sounds, and they all do something different. The shape of the microphone, the size of the microphone, the way the pickups are wired, the way the amplifier is built, like they all do something that affect your sound, and they all generate different tones. Like I personally find Because a lot of people, like as much as I own a really expensive microphone, like the DPA when I bought it like a decade ago cost me $6,000, so I can only imagine what it costs now. And then the Shure 57 is like, it's the industry standard of microphones across the planet. The SM58, the SM57, I just bought the slightly better models, but ultimately, you really just want to represent your sound. And I find using a 57 is just fine. The full circle, pickups wise, for me is been the clearest representation, because you get a myriad of pickups. You sometimes get like I think it's called a pearl or something, and it just is a contact pickup, which is hands down the worst thing you could buy. The Fishman BP100, also they use 2 ceramic contact points. AKG, years ago, which is a brand, a company, they brought out a bridge that had a metal plate acting as the pickup in it, which I found was amazing. And the big issue with pickups, firstly, is tone, and secondly is volume. So if I use my Realist, I can't lift my amp gain too much, because what happens is it creates a feedback loop. Because it's an acoustic instrument, it basically creates, so if my amplifier is too loud or it's pointed too much at the double bass body, then it creates a resonant feedback loop. So there's just this loud noise that you can't change unless you have to drop the volume, but obviously you drop the volume, you can't hear. So it's a weird trade-off. I find the full circle, which is the one Fishman now, which is the height adjuster, kills 2 birds with 1 stone for me. It's good to have height adjusters, in my opinion, especially if you go from playing outdoor to indoor, you want to raise your action or that kind of thing. And it just gives it's a clearer tone for me. Then next to me is a Mark bass amplifier, and I plugged it in just to explain to you what an amplifier does. So basically the description is really in the title. It takes whatever signal is going in and you can make it louder, but you can also affect the EQ change. So, so as it is now, I'll play it. That gives you an indication of what the sound is like. And that's the Fishman going into my amp. Then I'm going to set this so that whatever changes I make in front will affect the tone. So on most amplifiers, you can do tone shaping. The Fishman has got a Platinum EQ2, which is an amazing preamp, which I own, and Pocket Blender. There's basically, you can get pedal size preamps, which work amazingly, like a LR Bags. I find the acoustic DI is amazing. But basically it gives you settings to tweak the sound, because again, acoustically you can tweak nothing. You just hope and pray the room is nice, but you can't affect the EQ in any way. And when I say EQ, I refer to equalization. So basically the short version is, if you want to equalize something, you're going to raise or lower a certain frequency of sound. So if you want the low end, which is where we live, to be louder, you turn the bass up, like on a hi-fi system, if people still have hi-fis. Similarly, the mid-range you can cut and boost, and the treble, which is the top-end sizzly bit, you can cut and boost. So there's my amp on. And I turned it off because there's a drum kit in here, so it's quite, loud. So again, I'm a Mark bass endorsee. I love these amps. Even if you just put the volume on, they just make everything sound so much better. Anyway, so here's my tone through my amp, which I pretty much love. It's nice and clear. You'll hear the top end is quite sweet. And it can get pretty thumpy. So generally speaking, when I play and I use my EQ, I EQ for how bad the room is with my bass in it. So I get to a volume level that I enjoy, but sometimes the room is too boomy, then I just take the bottom end out. Or sometimes I'm playing with a band and I'm not clear enough, then I'll kind of dial up the mid-range a bit because I just want a bit more cutting clarity. Or depending on the day, my ears decide that I don't like the mid-range and then I turn that down. So I'll try and do it without feeding back. Yeah, I've turned the bass up quite a bit. You can hear it's quite substantial. And some of the mids, low mids and higher mids. So you can hear it's a lot more honky, kind of get that sound to it. And then treble, as you can imagine, is the top end. So you can hear my attack is a lot a lot more cutting, which I like, but sometimes can be a bit much. So, all in all, this is quite a short run through on. I mean, EQ is going to take you forever. It is just one of those things. Um, Ultimately, you need to have a good tone. Your ears, you need to listen because you can't just fiddle on an amp and hope and pray. Just having a good or discerning ear is a good thing, but you are limited to the equipment you have to some extent. Also, you must understand that your ears will change. As bizarre as that sounds, your ears accommodate. They will make a plan and kind of equalize themselves. And I never believed it, but oftentimes you walk into a room and you can't hear a thing. It's just mud and noise, especially in the bigger venues. And then after an hour or so, your ears kind of take a lot of that out for you, and you can hear a lot clearer. And it's by the grace of God that it happens like that. But having a discerning ear and understanding EQ in your equipment will definitely go a long way. Short of just getting a good acoustic sound, it's good to understand how to affect your sound and get a desirable tone.